She was a titan of the industrial age, a marvel of engineering prowess, and a symbol of human ambition pushing the boundaries of what was thought possible. The Titanic represented the culmination of decades of innovation in shipbuilding and maritime technology. She was a floating palace conceived in an era of supreme confidence, a time when humanity believed it could conquer any challenge. The interiors were designed to rival the finest hotels on land, showcasing the opulence and grandeur of the Edwardian era. The RMS Titanic was more than just a ship, she was a statement. She was a bold statement of human achievement, a testament to the ingenuity and skill of the engineers and workers who brought her to life. Every rivet, every plate, every meticulously crafted detail spoke volumes about the ambition of the age. She was a testament to the belief that technology had conquered nature, that mankind could build structures so immense and so sophisticated that they were virtually invincible. The steam age had reached its zenith, and the Titanic was its crowning glory. Built in Belfast, she was the largest moving object in the world, a symbol of the city's industrial might and the pride of its shipbuilding industry. She was a marvel of engineering and luxury, a floating city designed to cater to the needs and desires of its diverse passengers. Her launch in May 1911 drew over 100,000 spectators, a sea of faces eager to witness the birth of a legend. She was Belfast's pride, the White Star Line's triumph, a symbol of national prestige and maritime dominance. Nearly a year of fitting out followed, transforming her into a city at sea, a self-contained world of unparalleled comfort and extravagance. She featured grand staircases, Turkish baths, and opulent suites designed to cater to the most discerning tastes. 16 watertight compartments led the press to call her practically unsinkable, a claim based on the best engineering knowledge of the time. It was a phrase that would haunt her legacy, a cruel irony that underscored the limits of human hubris. On April 10, 1912, Titanic set sail from Southampton, embarking on her maiden voyage across the Atlantic. She was carrying over 2,200 souls, a microcosm of society, representing a wide spectrum of human experience. There were millionaires, eager to experience the ultimate in luxury and prestige. There were professionals, seeking new opportunities and adventures in the New World. And there were hopeful emigrants, dreaming of a better life in America. For days, the journey was idyllic. Calm seas, flawless performance, a smooth and uneventful crossing. There was a sense of absolute security, a feeling that nothing could possibly go wrong on this magnificent vessel. No one on board could have imagined that this perfect world, this symbol of human triumph, was sailing toward disaster in the icy North Atlantic, where unseen dangers lurked beneath the surface. Official records give us facts, but only survivors' voices reveal the true human story of Titanic's final night. Their memories, captured in letters, interviews, and testimony, bring the tragedy to life. Each account is unique: a stoker's chaos below decks, a millionaire's confusion in first class, a mother's desperate search in third class. Without these personal narratives, Titanic would be just a statistic. Survivors' stories transform history into a human drama. As Carpathia carried the 705 survivors to New York, the world clamored for their stories. Inquiries in America and Britain relied on their testimony to piece together the timeline of the sinking. Survivors wrote letters, gave interviews, and published memoirs, each adding detail and emotion. Through their voices, we can almost stand on Titanic's deck, feeling the chill, hearing the band, witnessing courage and fear. The survivors are the true historians of the Titanic. The moment of impact in those first few seconds was surprisingly subtle. It wasn't the earth-shattering collision one might expect from such a monumental event. Instead, it was a prolonged, almost mournful grinding shudder as the ship's hull scraped against the unforgiving ice. It wasn't a violent crash, but a drawn-out, agonizing encounter. The date was April 14, 1912. The Titanic, in its maiden voyage, was steaming westward across the North Atlantic. The sea was unusually calm that night, a deceptive tranquility that belied the danger lurking beneath the surface. The air was piercingly icy, a stark reminder of the frigid waters surrounding them, a cold that seeped into your bones. Many passengers, lulled by the gentle rocking of the ship, had already retired to their cabins for the night. Some, in the upper decks, felt only a slight jolt, a mere bump in the night that barely registered. But others, especially those in the lower decks closer to the bowels of the ship, knew instantly that something was terribly wrong. The sounds were more pronounced, the vibrations more intense. In the opulent first-class lounge, the card game continued, seemingly oblivious to the unfolding drama. On the promenade deck, some passengers, enjoying a late-night stroll, noticed that the engines had abruptly stopped. The sudden silence was more unnerving, more unsettling than the initial shudder had been. An eerie stillness descended upon the ship. Deep within the ship, in Boiler Room 6, seawater burst through the gashed hull with terrifying force. Stokers, knee-deep in water, scrambled desperately for safety, their faces etched with panic. They realized with chilling certainty that the ship, the mighty Titanic, was mortally wounded. Passengers, roused by the commotion, emerged from their cabins, initially confused and disoriented, but not yet alarmed. Stewards, attempting to maintain order, reassured them with practiced smiles. "There's nothing to worry about, ladies and gentlemen. We've just grazed an iceberg." Some passengers, caught up in the novelty of the situation, even played with chunks of ice brought on deck, laughing and posing for photographs. They were blissfully unaware of the true extent of the danger, the impending catastrophe that awaited them. The Titanic's sheer size and its widely held reputation as unsinkable made the possibility of any real danger seem utterly impossible, a preposterous notion. But far below, out of sight and mind, the desperate fight against the relentless Atlantic had already begun, a battle they were destined to lose. The full, horrifying truth of their situation would dawn slowly, creeping in like the icy water filling the ship, and with a terrifying, inescapable certainty that would grip them all. The deceptive initial calm on the surface masked a rapidly unfolding disaster beneath their feet, a silent killer rising from the depths. The ship that had been hailed as invincible, a marvel of engineering, was now fatally compromised, its fate sealed by a kiss of ice. The nightmare, the unthinkable, had begun. In the opulent first-class dining room, the unfolding disaster felt strangely surreal, a distant rumble that barely disturbed the crystal glasses and polite conversation. The initial reports were dismissed as mere inconveniences, minor setbacks on their grand voyage. The sheer luxury and the perceived security of the Titanic served as a thick veil, masking the growing danger that lurked beneath the surface. The grand staircase, usually a hub of social activity, now echoed with hushed whispers and nervous glances. When orders were finally given to don lifebelts and assemble on deck, they were met with a mixture of disbelief and annoyance. Many passengers, accustomed to a life of comfort and privilege, struggled to grasp the gravity of the situation. The very idea of the Titanic, the unsinkable ship, actually sinking was simply unthinkable, a notion that defied logic and reason. It was a floating palace, a symbol of human achievement, surely immune to the perils of the sea. On the boat deck, a strange tableau unfolded. Men in impeccably tailored tuxedos, their faces etched with a mixture of concern and forced composure, stood alongside women in elegant evening gowns, their jewels glinting in the dim light, a stark contrast to the unfolding tragedy. Passengers in hastily donned nightclothes, clutching their lifebelts as if they were precious talismans, stood beside those still clinging to the remnants of their formal attire. The ship's orchestra, with unwavering dedication, played cheerful tunes, attempting to calm frayed nerves and maintain a semblance of order amidst the growing chaos. Millionaires, confident in the swift arrival of rescue ships, bravely saw their wives and children off into the lifeboats, believing their separation would be temporary. But as the ship's angle relentlessly steepened, the veneer of calm began to crack, giving way to a chilling horror as the realization of their true predicament dawned. The horrifying truth became undeniable. There were simply not enough lifeboats to save everyone on board. Some, like the millionaire Benjamin Guggenheim, faced their impending doom with stoic resolve, dressing in their finest attire and accepting their fate with grim dignity, a final act of defiance against the encroaching darkness. For those fortunate enough to find a place in the lifeboats, the trauma of what they witnessed would be profound and everlasting, a burden they would carry for the rest of their days. They watched in helpless horror as the Titanic's light slowly vanished beneath the waves, and then, the chilling sound that would forever haunt their memories, the desperate cries of over 1,000 souls struggling in the freezing water. Those survivors would never be able to truly forget that sound, the agonizing death knell of so many lives, the shattering of their world as they knew it. The vast fortunes and social status that had defined their lives proved utterly meaningless against the unforgiving power of the cold, indifferent sea. Even survival itself brought with it lifelong scars, both visible and invisible, a constant reminder of the tragedy they had endured. The grand voyage that had begun in such splendor and optimism ultimately ended in unimaginable loss and heartbreak, a stark testament to the fragility of human ambition in the face of nature's raw power. For third-class passengers, the ordeal was chaos and terror. Housed deep in the ship, they were the last to understand the danger and faced locked gates and language barriers. Many awoke to icy water flooding their cabins, struggling through confusing corridors to reach the boat deck. Survivor Olaus Abelseth described crowds praying and desperate attempts to escape. Unlike first class, there was little help. Families were separated, and survival was a frantic struggle. Less than a quarter of third-class passengers survived. Class barriers became deadly. The ship's design and social divisions sealed their fate. The Titanic's tragedy was also a tragedy of inequality. Titanic's crew faced a test of duty and courage. Captain Smith, on his final voyage, stayed at his post until the end. Wireless operators Phillips and Bride sent SOS signals until water swirled around their feet. Phillips did not survive, but their efforts brought rescue. Officers enforced order, loading lifeboats and upholding women and children first, sometimes at gunpoint. Second Officer Lightoler's strict interpretation left boats half empty but prevented chaos. Below decks, engineers and stokers kept the lights and pumps running, buying precious time for evacuation. Not one of the 35 engineers survived. Their sacrifice and professionalism saved lives above. The crew's heroism is a vital part of Titanic's story. Titanic's sinking revealed the full spectrum of human emotion: fear, courage, confusion, and hope. Survivor Eva Hart recalled the dreadful noise and the silence that followed. Amid terror, there were acts of bravery. The ship's orchestra played on, calming passengers as the end approached. None of the musicians survived, but their courage became legend. Confusion reigned. No proper emergency plan meant lifeboats launched half full, and disbelief cost lives. By the time the danger was clear, it was too late for many. Hope flickered in the lifeboats as survivors watched for rescue. Second Officer Lightoler survived by clinging to an overturned boat, praying for dawn. Titanic's human drama is defined by desperate hope set against overwhelming loss. The tragedy exposed both the best and worst of human nature. Dawn on April 15, 1912, revealed a sea of lifeboats and debris. The Titanic was gone. Survivors, adrift in silence, faced the full horror of their loss. At 4 a.m., the Carpathia appeared, racing through ice to reach them. The rescue was slow. Survivors, frozen and in shock, were hauled aboard. The Carpathia's crew offered blankets, hot drinks, and comfort as the story unfolded. The voyage to New York was somber. Survivors mourned lost loved ones and grappled with guilt. When Carpathia docked, 40,000 people waited in the rain. Survivors faced a storm of reporters and desperate relatives. Their private tragedy became a global spectacle. For many, the hardest part was just beginning. Rebuilding lives forever changed. They were no longer just passengers or crew, they were Titanic survivors. The world had changed, and so had they. The memory of that night would haunt them always. Titanic's sinking was more than a shipwreck. It was a cultural turning point. Survivors' testimony at inquiries exposed fatal flaws: too few lifeboats, ignored warnings, and class barriers. Their stories led to sweeping changes in maritime safety: lifeboats for all, 24-hour radio watches, and the International Ice Patrol. Survivors became living history, sharing memories and keeping the human story alive. They reminded the world that Titanic's tragedy was about real people, not just statistics. Their voices gave us the iconic images and enduring myths. Without them, Titanic would be a silent wreck. Through their memories, the great ship sails on, a lesson in the fragility of life and the dangers of hubris.